Development takes a lot longer than you'd like. Just liking to get to know people, right? Whether it's on Zoom masterminds, in conference masterminds, your local network, right? The real estate attorney, the real estate brokers, the real estate property managers. If you really are interested in people, getting to know them, and then letting them know what you're after, I think that's the best way to do it.
Hi, Adam Gower here, founder of gowercrowd.com and host of this amazing podcast and YouTube series, The Allocator, where I'm looking at the world of the capital allocator. Now, my guest today, Josh Cochran of Cochran Capital, is a dentist, actually by trade. And his story into real estate is unusual amongst the allocator crew, in that he actually started to do some of his own development. So he got his hands dirty. Is that the term? Got his fingers dirty, his hands dirty anyway, actually developing real estate. That's a great experience when you start to migrate into raising capital for other people. So what you're going to hear about from Josh today is his journey, what he's doing, some of the challenges that he's faced. If you wait long enough, you will hear some of the, I don't want to say horror stories, but some of the extraordinary stories that he's heard from other dentists about what they have invested in, how they've lost money. I shouldn't laugh about that. It's very serious. But they are lessons to learn from. Anyway, that comes up a little bit later in my conversation with Josh. If you've not yet signed up to my newsletter, please do so. Gowercrowd.com. Hit the subscribe button. Tripping over my words right now. Subscribe button. You'll see some of the companies my subscribers work for on that page. And at the moment, I am discussing investing in real estate this year through the lens of my extensive experience. So I'm sharing some candid views about what's going on in the economy through the lens of history and the things that I've seen in my lengthy career. Okay, all there, gowercrowd.com, hit the subscribe button. Okay, let's get on with it. Josh Cochran, dentist and developer, real estate developer, capital raiser, Cochran Capital, coming up now. Right, Josh Cochran. I already said this when I saw you, or when we first connected. OMG, for anybody who's not actually watching this video, Josh is walking. He's on a treadmill of some sort, presumably with some hellacious slope that he's walking towards as well, because he's also wearing either a weight vest or a flak jacket. I'm not sure which one, but anyway, Josh, welcome, and thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Glad to be here.
All right, good. So apart from your exercise fanaticism, which we can find out a bit more about later if you like, what do you do for a living? How do you earn your weekly envelope?
Yeah, that's been shifting the last couple of years, Adam. So I started out in dentistry, and then with some other great team members, grew the largest general dental group in the Inland Northwest. So we grew it to about 160 team members, which was great. Learned a lot, had a lot of fun, and then gave up control to another group and sold some shares last January. And you always kind of think about what's your next, and I don't know, 5-7 year cycles. What do you want to do with your time, and who are you? You've changed, the world's changed. And the last 5 years I've been also doing real estate development.
So in what way have you been doing development? Kind of explain to me what that means exactly.
Yeah, so with dental practices, you need places to have practices. So primarily it was like medical retail. And then
what's medical retail? You know what it is, but there's one person in the audience who doesn't know what medical retail is. What is medical retail, and what exactly did you do or have you been doing in medical retail development?
Yeah. So so doctors, all of us used to be in office buildings. referral based, and then the world changed to marketing, and one of the best forms of marketing is visibility. Many medical professionals have shifted towards being in neighborhoods and being in people's eyes. So like, think like next to a Starbucks, right? That would be like an ideal location. And so as we grew our dental group and added locations, some of them startups, I got to do some development, and I really liked it, and I always had a passion for it, but I no idea how to do it in college, so I chose
Josh, so hang on a second. So I just want to know when I did development, just tell me what you did. I want to know what exactly are you talking about?
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
It means taking something and making something else, right? Whether that's repurposing a building, doing interior, external renovations, right? Just having a vision about what the community needs, and then building that vision. So both redevelopment of current buildings and ground up construction of medical retail.
So you bought existing buildings, you bought land, and then what was your role in developing them?
Yeah, I guess just cracking the whip, funding, cracking the whip. Yeah, like I try to surround myself with a good team. So I tried to find like a good architect, contractor, civil folks that have done this before, surround myself with them and kind of learn as I go, right? So I think vision is the biggest piece, just understanding what the community needed. One of the, oh gosh. Yeah, I mean, this is just my opinion. I think it starts with understanding the market, right? And so like, where is there demand for medical services that's not being met? Right? And then finding land there that's undervalued, and then acquiring that. And so you just got to have a vision. There's no guarantee. There's no like,
so you went, okay, so you found land and you got an architect. Presumably you looked at zoning. You had a general contractor and an engineer in partnership with the architect or alongside, and then you hired a general contractor. Is that right? And then you managed that process. Is that what you're telling me when you say you did development? Yeah. How did you finance that?
A little bit of bank, a little bit of myself. Yeah.
So these were entirely self-financed, were they?
So the first projects were entirely self-financed, right?
And what kind of scale, Josh?
The last one we did on retail was 16,000 square feet. So
And in dollar terms, how much was that to develop? That was ground up, was it?
that was ground up. It's a good question. On that one, maybe. Oh man, three and a half. I've been in multifamily lately, so my brain's
Okay, no
retail,
problem.
but
All right, so what do you do in multifamily? We can migrate to that. So you started doing a little ground up work and you ran those projects yourself. Multifamily. So what's that story? Tell me about that, how you got into multifamily. What do you mean you're in multifamily? Are you developing multifamily as well in the same way as you were developing retail, medical retail?
well, yeah, in some ways. So, as I was shifting out of dental, retail's great if you have tenants in tow, right? How do you bring tenants? Either you yourself as a tenant through relationships, or primarily brokers, right? And right now, banks in the last few years, they haven't really wanted to lend on ground up retail, right? So if you don't have those tenants in hand, if I don't have those broker relationships with the tenants, then that's a tougher asset class, right? If I'm not growing the dental group. And so multifamily was doing quite well locally. And so I looked at the numbers and I decided that multifamily would be the best next asset class. So I started in on that, and
Started in on that. What does that mean exactly?
so I'm a researcher, right? I have two brains. I have very much like detailed brain, and then I have like the visionary brain. And so I would just kind of do both, and I believe the best way to learn is by doing, and I always will bet on myself, right? And so what did I do? I started making offers on land, and didn't want to close until I had permits in hand, but the market was hot and no sellers were going for that. So I just started buying pieces of land and started getting them through development.
Through permits, entitlement and permitting. Is that what you mean?
So
Hmm.
and then some of mine are smaller, so I was able to do it myself, and I felt like I could with my team, with the experience on my team that I have, I feel like I could do those. But then some are larger, right? Moving up a weight class. Anytime I move up a weight class, I like to partner with experienced folks. And so yeah, my largest project, I have two partners, and then it's sometimes just synergistic. One of my smaller ones, I have a partner. He's fantastic. He brings a lot of development construction knowledge as well, and I bring more development and capital raising, so it's very synergistic there too. So we have gosh, how many? About 5 projects, 450 units locally in development.
Mhm.
No shovels in the ground.
It's all entitlement, is it?
Purely entitled. So I have permits on 2 of them, so we're working on the lending right now, and then the 3 others should be, one of them will have a permit this year, the other 2 will be next year. So
And so total, not value, but total cost when all those are done, including land, permits, entitlement, and development. What are you looking at
what's
there?
the total cost there?
Yeah.
Probably maybe 125 off the top of my head.
Okay, that's a big number to go from retail medical relative sounds like relatively small to a big, no, 125 million of ground up multifamily in the same area. How did you find? So you presumably you're looking to raise, I'm guessing what, 80 or more from banks, 70, 80 million in debt, and the rest you'll have to bring in equity. So that's 50 million of equity. It's a lot of money. How are you setting about doing that?
Yeah, just putting one foot in front of the other, Adam. So, yeah, it's a great question. So, I try to look ahead a couple years, and as I was thinking, hey, I'm going to transition out of dental and transition full time into development, I saw this problem as well. It's like, okay, so I fund one deal myself, then what? I sit around for 4 years while it gets stabilized. Like, what do you do? And I thought about, just my strengths and what I've learned about myself and my passions, right? Passion, proficiency, where those lined up. And I'm a creator. I love building things. I love envisioning things and creating them. That I know about myself. And so, yeah, finding great partners, people more experienced than myself, like you, that I could work with, who were awesome, high integrity go-getters. And then also I needed to build that capital raising muscle. So I spent maybe a year kind of learning about capital raising, and then
How did you do that? How did you do that?
just talking to people all the time, and you just kind of follow the path, right? You go to talk to people, you're like, oh, okay, and you listen to a podcast or you read a book or you go to a conference and you start just building that foundational knowledge. And then you feel at a place where you're at critical mass, where you understand enough and you feel comfortable to take the first step. And then, yeah.
Josh, are you actually raising money for your own deals, or are you raising them for third-party sponsors, other sponsors?
Yeah, so the short answer is third party right now.
Hmm.
Um, you know,
So
I,
this 125, so to jump in on your short answer, make it even shorter. This 125 of development, these are real estate, sorry, these are real estate developers in the area who are doing multifamily, and you're assisting them with the capital raising side of it. Is that what you're doing?
no,
So what do you
so
mean by third party sponsors? And make sure we're talking about
so yeah, let me be more clear. So um four of the five developments locally, I am the primary.
what does that mean actually? You're the primary.
There's always a decision maker, right? So either I control the land and own the land. Um, I mean, I think that's probably the main one. So
Okay.
one of my projects, I have the two other partners who are sophisticated, more experienced than me, and I defer to them. My primary role is not copy raiser though, in that I'm like the local boots on the ground. I'm the local partner, and there's value.
Where are they located?
Yeah, one of them is a development group that works all over the country. Um, Ottawa, Canada, and Utah, two of their partners. Many of their partners are in Ottawa, and then one in Utah. And then the other partner, he's in Bend, Oregon.
And that one deal, how much of the 125 does that one
Yeah,
take?
that's the largest. So that one's going to be about 255 units. Podium. And that one we're going to do active adult. Did a lot of market research, and that's the best fit for the market.
So and you're going to be running the project locally, are you?
I mean, it's a team effort, but yeah, I'm the boots on the ground for sure.
And do they have any other people in the area?
No,
And so what's the next largest size that you've done?
that's in development. I haven't done any yet, finished on the
Okay.
multifamily.
And the
The
next
next one,
size, yeah, the next
next
down
largest
from
is
224
91
units.
units.
Sorry, how many?
91.
91. And that's in development as well.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And so for your 224, that's a big raise. So how are you setting about raising that capital?
Okay, so that one my partners are helping, right? They do this a lot. We raised from our networks to start as we went through entitlements. And once you get over 50 million, as you know, the 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 larger equity partners also like to be the debt partners. So most of the folks we talk to, the debt and the equity partner are going to come together for the remaining funds.
That's interesting. So just walk me through that. What kind of partners are they? That is not something I commonly see. So just
That's
talk.
what you commonly see.
No,
Okay.
normally you would have an institutional debt provider for a deal that size, and then you would bring your own equity, or from again institutional equity for that kind of scale, typically a private equity shop maybe. But talk to me
Well,
about it.
from our conversation, it's usually both. It's really interesting. I this is a pivot for me. So maybe it's just my personal experience, our personal experience, but that's what we've seen. So, we have some capital.
So are they institutional investors then? Like who is it that
Yeah, we've talked to insurance companies, talked to family offices, we've
Hmm,
talked to capital brokers, right? That bring both. They maybe raise their own funds, but they also, have their debt partners they work with, and they do the brokerage there.
okay.
So
But right, through the broker will bring you the debt and the equity. Is that what you're saying?
a couple times a
Yeah.
year. But it's also, like I said, the insurance companies, um, Yeah, it's just kind of the feedback we've got. And it's not every time, right? Sometimes you're right. Sometimes it's equity here and debt here, but it was just surprising to me how many folks wanted to do both. It was important to them to do both.
So how are you set up that? So I'm still not 100% sure. I thought you were an allocator, somebody who raises capital. That's kind of your primary
50
mission.
50.
Huh?
50 is how look, like as a developer, if you have a vision, right? You want to build stuff, and every time it takes you the same amount of time to build something, whether it's small, medium, or large, right? If you have a passion and a vision, you're like, hey, that was cool, but I want to go bigger next time, right? And then I want to go bigger next time. Well, your primary problem to that is the funding, right? And I didn't want to be stuck in a position where I was like, hey, I have all these great ideas, but I can't execute on the funding piece, right? So in my brain, it's like, hey, I want to build that muscle too. So I worked on both muscles. Real estate developer, 50%, capital raiser, 50%.
But you do capital raising for other people as well, is that right?
Yeah. So
what does that look like?
yeah, it's a good question. So, I'm all like service leadership, think about who your audience is and what do they need, right? How can I serve them? So being a dentist, the last 10 years, I have a lot of relationships across the country with other successful dentists. And, we all have different strengths. We're all built different way, right? Different passions. And I realized I was finance in undergrad. So I've always leaned towards like details, underwriting, finances. And a lot of my dental buddies, the skills they have to be successful as a dentist aren't the same skills, right? So much of investing, there's much of the investing is like that investment offering, that pitch sounded pretty interesting. And that guy seemed like a nice guy. And, I did self-storage this time, let me do multifamily this time. So you get like that false security of diversification, right? But you and I know it's not the numbers on the screen, right? It's the real due diligence, the real underwriting that you need to do on a project.
Okay, so hang on, let me just back up a little bit. So
Yeah.
you are raising money for, in this case, as an allocator, you're raising money for sponsors outside of your area. You're not developing, you're not the boots on the ground. So can you just, how much have you raised for that?
Yeah. So outside of my own capital, I started in April, and I've been very hesitant just because I've seen so many deals go bad, right? The last 2-3 years, right? And these are my friends, right? I want to protect their money, right? I'm very defensive of it. And so I really just been focused on slow. So I've raised a little, probably like 7.5, 7.6 million.
Mm-hmm. And into what kinds of deals when you're mainly the capital raiser? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been different asset classes. I really just get to know folks. I really have to find like high integrity folks. And then I just dive deep, about 40 hours on the person, 40 hours on the deal. And what's come out of it has been different asset classes. So there's been some multifamily, there's been some retail, there's been some ground up development, like things I understand, right? Understand well. And right now we're looking at we have under contract and we're working on closing make sure, see what I can say here, a $50 million GSA portfolio.
So how do you find the sponsors then who are doing these deals?
Just put out my fingers, like whatever I find interesting, get to know people, start chatting with people online. I mean, all sorts of different ways. I feel
And how do you verify that they're legit players?
yeah, I mean, background checks,
You do you do that on your own, or you do it in a group?
on my own. Sometimes with others, sometimes like with Bobby and those guys, I'll do stuff with them too. They're great.
Hmm.
Yeah, background checks. I get to know them. I have a lot of questions. Personal financial statements. Yeah, I just go deep. Site visits, I get to know them. Like the last time I went down and talked to a property manager / investor on this project we're working on now. And I mean, I probably spent 2.5 hours just listening to her, getting to know her life story. And there's the paper, there's the investment offerings, there's the spreadsheets, right? But for me, I do all that, but to me, that's just superficial. I got to go deep. I got to understand people, their whys, what drives them, their integrity, and I got to understand the story of the deal. It all has to make sense, right? That's really important to me. It served me well. So,
and so you raised 7.5 million, and these are. How do you find investors then for these deals?
yeah, mainly through my network of dentists, just
Mhm.
reaching out to people. As you know, I read a little bit on you. It's not about the software or the system or this or that. It's really about that one-on-one relationship at the end of the day. And so I just focus on, just developing those relationships and serving people, figuring out what people will need, and trying to match the investments with their investment goals. And yeah, and for me, time is a challenge, right? Because I'm wearing both hats, the developer hat and the fundraising hat. I haven't been able to commit the time to the healthy fundraising habits.
So what's an unhealthy fundraising habit?
I think I would say ones that don't give you an ROT and ROI, right? Return on time, return on investment, right? So spamming people on marketing with an undifferentiated offering, I would probably be an unhealthy habit.
And of that 7.5 million, what are the types of deals that you've invested in? Can you kind of break that out, or give me a case study of one? And you've done that in what period of time, Josh?
Since April.
Okay, so about 9 months. Almost actually, yeah, 10 months. So what have you invested in? You've got this GSA deal. Is that one of them?
Yeah, so the GSA deal is the current one.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should say all of it just because we're still in it. But I could give you, I can give you the last one if you'd like.
Sure, yeah. Kind of a case study, yeah.
So I just through my networks, right? Like masterminds, conferences, locally. I just love learning about people. I mean, it's a very curious person. I love people, get to know folks, right? I kind of give them a sense of what I'm looking for and where I'm going. I was at a conference last year. This was best ever conference. I do like the VIP thing because I just meet interesting people in the VIP room. It's a little smaller, right? And someone's like, "Oh, you should talk to Rich. He's up in your area." So I went up to Rich. He was walking out the door. I was like, "Hey, my name's Josh. I'm in Spokane. I hear you're in Boise. Like, I'd love to chat, get to know what you're doing." And Rich and I just hit it off. He struck me as a very high integrity individual. I just really liked it, right? And I started learning about what Rich was doing. He's also doing development, right? So I could view Rich as a competitor because they work in Montana, Idaho, Eastern Washington. But so first picked up on like high integrity, like this is a good dude. The second thing I picked up on is they're actively developing in this high interest rate time, right? When you see permits, going down, right? You see finished units going down, these guys are scaling up and growing. So it's like, okay, it's easy to do it when the tides are with you, right? But if you're successful and the tides aren't with you, you must be doing something special, right? So I started to get to know Rich. I started to get to know his two partners, and just kept at it. Just kept getting to know them and what they were doing, and really tried to figure out what their special sauce was. And
What is their special sauce?
for them, I would say a strong partnership. So you have they each know the other areas, right? But they each specialize and choose to specialize and focus their energy. So you have the developer, you have the contractor, and you have Rich, who's like compliance, capital raising.
So and what kind of project how much did you put in that deal?
Yeah, and that one, 2.4 million.
And total amount of equity being raised for that deal?
You know, the sponsors, I believe, I can't remember the final breakout, but let's say they put in maybe 900K themselves. And that was it. That's an 84 townhome ground up development. And another, like, they're smart, right? So these guys are phasing their developments.
So hang on a sec. Let me just get into that 2.4 million. So 3.3 million total. So what is it? Like a $9-10 million total cost of
Oh, that's it. I'll have to look at that one again. Sorry, I've been focused on this other one lately, but it was more like probably 20 million.
20 million. Okay, but you only raised 3.3 million of equity. It's all it needed.
Phasing. Yeah, you do phases and you do them fast. You just roll that equity from phase to phase to phase, like skipping a rock, right?
Okay. And so what kind of terms did you get? And how do you get compensated on that?
Yeah, so if you asked me 2 months ago, I'd be rattling these numbers off the top of my head. I've shifted to this current one. What kind of terms did we get? Yeah, so I think on this one, the final IRR was maybe 18.
Not those terms. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
So the deal offers returns to investors.
Yeah.
Kind of preferred return, some kind of split of profits, right? A promote.
Yeah.
So how is that structured, and how do you get compensated on that deal?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember the exact numbers on that one. Preferred was between 8 and 10. The split at the end on this one, I think this one was either 50-50 or 60-40.
I see. And then how do you get compensated on this?
Yeah. So, this is all based off of like SEC stuff, right? So working within the rules of the SEC. So, typically I'm just gonna give the context. You know all this, but I'll just give context.
There's one guy in the audience that doesn't. Talk to him.
So, if you're gonna provide value for people, you want to be in alignment with your investors, right? So you want most of your reward coming when things become successful. So number two, you do need to get paid for the work you do, and you need to keep the lights on, right? Keep the lights on for your company, but also keep the lights on for your family. So there's typically a fee up front.
Typically, what is that fee in your case?
A due diligence fee, typically, depending on the deal and the size of the deal. That usually runs like 1 to 3%.
Of what?
Of the
total deal, or of the equity raised?
Well, the equity raised, that's an SEC violation, right? So you can't do that. So it's got to be
so 1 to 3%. You said due diligence fee on 20 million, so 200 to 600,000. So what on that deal?
Yeah, let me be more specific. This is good. I like numbers. I like specificity. So yeah, let's say yeah, okay. I guess I did change my number there, my second number. Okay, so if you're doing if you're doing it on what you raise, okay, you got to do a flat dollar figure. You can't do a percent. The SEC doesn't like that, but you can use a percent to get a feel for what you should be charging for your services, right? So you're looking at all these different deals, saying no to most, putting a lot of time in that, narrowing it down to just a couple. You're boiling down the ocean for your investors. When you boil down the ocean, you finally have a deal you want to charge for that time. And 3% is what I see most of dollars raised. But again, you got to change that into a dollar number, right? But if you wanted to do it that way, you can do that. And if
And that is of the money raised, though.
of the money raised, that's
okay.
one way to look at it.
Yeah.
The other way to look at it is total deal, right? And then if you do that, yeah, it depends on the size of the deal. I mean, 0.1 to 1%, typically, depending on how much
value
you're bringing.
Right. So in this case, you raised 2.4 million. They brought in 900. It's total 20 million. You charged some kind of fee, and then you said the preferred return was somewhere, it was 8 or 10. It's a big range.
I think this
50,
on the
50.
deal.
So do your investors get a different, do you take a delta between what the sponsor is paying and what your investors are getting? So you get a piece of the back end as well?
Yeah, so I'll give you numbers. I can't guarantee this is the exact number on this one, so I'll be specific with the first numbers that come to mind.
Okay.
So on this one, let's say I think I earned like a $50,000 fee up front. Okay. And my work on that one took a little while to close because we started with a tick and then we shifted out of a tick. So on top of all the other things, all the legal, I mean, that one took about probably 6 months to close. It was a lot of work. So at the end of the day, I think my upfront fee ended up being $50,000 for all the due diligence, okay? And getting that thing, getting all the parties working together, all the services, okay? So 50,000 there. And then I want to be in alignment with my investors. And so, you can do an asset under management fee or some sort of like yearly fee. I have not been. So I've just been doing a percentage of the pref and a percentage of the return on the back end. So
and what percentage then is that, do you take?
It depends on the project and how much work, right? And so on this one, because the development team was so good, this one I believe was 10% of the pref. So if it's like a 10 pref, it'd be like a 9. And then on the back end, it might have been 10% on the back end as well of kind of like a carried interest.
And how does that work actually, Josh? Then did you set up an SPV with an operating agreement? So your investors invested in that, and then that entity is the one that brought the 2.4 million to the partnership, or did you do it some other way?
Yeah, it depends on the deal and how sophisticated folks are. So I have a fund, right? So if I'm bringing in folks and they're straight LPs.
This is one of the Avesta funds, is it?
This is an investor fund. I set up through Investor.
Avesta. Yeah.
So that is one way I raise sometimes. Other times, if the person wants to be more involved, they want to be active. Even if they don't have the experience level, they want to be active, they want to be involved. And this one was local, and my investor did. They're very interested in real estate. They want to grow their knowledge. They wanted to be involved. And so what we did on this one was a joint. We did a JV setup. So keep it simple. I was only bringing one investor on this one. So the investor had a problem. I spent, 4 weeks thinking on that problem, what would be best fit for that. And,
so hang on, you brought one investor, and that investor who wanted to have an active role, even though they had no real estate experience. What were they doing? Would that investor brought 2.4 million, or did they bring other investors as well?
They just so I brought one investor to the deal, 2.4 million.
Oh, I see. Okay. Got it. And in other cases, you bring multiple investors, do you?
Yeah, just depends on, you know how it is each time. So it's like, yeah, my goal is always to deliver value for folks, right? Like really deliver value and minimize risk, maximize returns, really deliver value. So, you know, I'm always talking to folks and like, what's this person's problem? What are they really trying to solve? Right. And then I'm always talking to people who have deals or my own deals. And I'm like, okay, you're a matchmaker, right? And this person's trusting you to bring an investor who's not going to be a major pain in their butt, right? Because there's nothing worse than a pain in the butt investor. This person's trusting me to find them a good investment. So many dentists I know have lost so much money the last 3 years in Ponzi schemes as poor investments, right? So they're relying on me to do my best to bring strong due diligence on the person, the market, the deal, right?
What kind of mistakes have your dentist friends made? And
Oh,
what have you seen them losing? Like, tell me about that.
so much money. Uh,
Really?
so yeah, I mean, I feel like when the tides are going up, things tend to work out. When the tides are pulling back, if there's any weakness, things fall apart.
And have you noticed them investing in concentrations with individual sponsors, or has it been broad? Like, what have you seen, Josh?
Yeah, it's broad. Like I said, the due diligence is not deep, right? The due diligence is very light and it's in different asset classes. So people have the illusion of feeling like they're well invested, well diversified.
Mm.
My belief is fewer, deeper relationships. It's more important to go deep and really understand a sponsor in the project than diversify across asset classes, which is also important. But first, you really got to know each deal you're investing. And a lot of the times it was chasing like tax minimization, right? And so that's another thing. Like people just, I mean, there's so many. I mean, water stations, right? You're getting the 179 deduction on that equipment. So leveraged water stations. Seems like a great deal. You get the immediate tax benefit, but then you find out it's probably a Ponzi scheme. And now you've got this debt you need to pay off, right? And there's no returns. Same with ATMs, right? This is a cyclical thing with ATMs. It's one of those like outliers where like every 10 years, you just read about Ponzi schemes. Another one is like investing in when someone has like a lawsuit where they're going to get money, right? But before they want their money early, and so people invest to get that. I've also seen this lack of execution, life settlements, right? Letting policies expire in a life settlement investment, right? Like the simple, like it's just it's not good. Carbon capture. I mean, that was a massive one. I'd have dentists, orthodontists sold their 12 million bucks, their life work, right? Because of the massive tax benefit here of the carbon investment. And then the projected returns, like they invested their entire life savings in this, right? And it turned out to be a big Ponzi scheme. And so there's all these. And then there's like just I feel like capital raising in general, this is just my opinion, Adam. I don't know. Capital raising is basically sales, right?
What? Sorry?
Sales.
Sales.
Sales, right? So it's primarily a sales job. And in my belief, the number one piece, the core piece of this is actually the underwriting. So when people say they want to get into capital raising, hey, Josh, I see you've been capital raising, like I'm interested in doing that. I say, don't go into the capital raising groups. I say, join an underwriting group. Figure out how to deeply vet people and deals, right? That needs to be your core because the sales, the capital raising goes on top of that. But if you don't have that core piece, you're not really going to be serving people. And that may not be apparent for 5-10 years until things start to constrict. And then it gets very apparent.
Josh, I would love to talk to you a lot longer, but we've already been talking for a long time, a lot longer than I'd anticipated. So let me move to some final questions, and then I've got an offline question to ask you. What's been the hardest lesson you've learned so far in real estate? Rapid fire questions. This lot. Just
Yeah, what's the hardest lesson?
yeah.
Development takes a lot longer than you'd like.
All right. What have you actually found to be the most effective way of building your active investor network? I know you've just started, but what's the best way you've found? Most effective way?
I think just liking to get to know people, right? Whether it's on Zoom masterminds, in conference masterminds, your local network, right? The real estate attorney, the real estate brokers, the real estate property managers. If you really are interested in people, getting to know them, and then letting them know what you're after, I think that's the best way to do it.
Right. So in person is what you're saying. Is that right? Mostly?
I mean, it's hard, right? I got 3 little kids. I can't fly around all over the country. They're my #1 priority. So, but I do get to know people through Zoom masterminds, right? We work together, we solve problems together. I try to be a good strategic partner for all my folks I work with, the attorney, the banker, the brokers.
And what masterminds do you like, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, you learn from one year and you kind of go to the next, right?
Which have you liked? Which have you found to be particularly helpful?
So I think someone recommended the Real Estate Guys. So I went to their conferences, a couple of those, and that was good. Get some good 101 basic knowledge. I've done I've done a little multifamily stuff. Investor's been helpful, right? Like navigating fund compliance. I mean, I can't tell you something I'd like to do less, so that's been helpful. Connected Capital's been great to have a tribe. So Bobby, and Madavi, they're just good people, and we have shared problems, right? We're all young fundraisers trying to do right for our investors, right? And so you're not alone. You have a tribe that you can solve problems together and grow together. That's very powerful. That happened on the dental side. Me and my buddies on dental, there were like 30 of us who started practices at the same time. We knew nothing, right? But having that core group of people to teach each other, and we were informal. That was not like a formal thing. That was just us sharing. And you see these big goals keep getting hit, and it raises your ceiling. And these people most of them now are like top 3% in the industry. All of us started with nothing. All of us started, 500 grand, $1 million in debt, negative net worth. And then over the last 10 years. So I feel like the same way in capital raising, you really need a tribe. That for me has been the biggest success factor.
So before you left dentistry, if you could go back to that moment and give yourself some advice, my last question, what would that advice be?
Man, figure out what you're good at, what your passions are, and then go after that. I think I would have joined I knew I liked development. I just didn't know the how, and I was too afraid to figure out how to get there. I could have joined like a property management firm, like Ken McElroy, right? He was in Seattle. That's where I was. I could have started like Ken McElroy in property management or in brokerage or some sort of accessory business that would have worked with development. But instead, I just went with the safe route of dentistry where you're taking care of people, building your own business. Still good, but not truly to my core who I was. So try to learn who you are and don't be afraid to get after it.
Josh Cochran, Cochran Capital, thank you so much for spending your workout with me today.
Adam, it was my pleasure. Thank you for being a gracious and kind host, and I wish you the best.
All right, that was Josh Cochran of Cochran Capital. Josh, what a pleasure meeting you. I should go out and have a walk now, having watched you do that. I was getting tired just watching you do that, actually, and with a weight vest, no less. Anyway, thanks for joining. It was a real pleasure to meet you. I appreciate your time today. And thank you to dear viewers for joining us today. Isn't it interesting to hear the stories of how people transition from their professional lives into different universes, into different career paths? Josh, it was very interesting that you said you go through these 6-7 year cycles of the things that you want to do and you do in life. That has certainly been my career, one way or another, going from the corporate real estate world to the private equity real estate world to the banking real estate world to all kinds of different angles and approaches. Anyway, okay, let's wrap up. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me this week. Until next time, this is Adam Gower signing off.